Welcome back to another edition of Relative Talk. I'm your host, John Laloja. My guest today is George St. John, my cousin. George, how's it going, buddy?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing, John?
Good, good. Where are you joining us from?
I am joining you from the Windy City, Chicago IRL. Just moved into a brand new apartment, so just finally
Nice.
getting settled in here and excited to be here. So thank you so
Sweet,
much
man.
for having me.
Awesome. Awesome. New digs. It's a very
Yeah.
exciting time.
Love it.
Well, want to have you on the pod, talk about a couple of things. So you are at a point of your life where essentially I was 10, 15 years ago when I had graduated college and started pursuing comedy.
Mhm.
And that is something that you're currently doing in Chicago, stand-up specifically. And before we get into all of that, because I want to know all about it, I'm just curious, why did you decide to pursue comedy, and what were your early influences?
Um, this is an interesting question for me to answer. I don't always love to answer it because my first memory of saying I want to do this is, or I want to try stand up. I want to, my first love for comedy and for humor came from watching Bill Cosby. Um, that's a true story that I don't love to share.
You didn't know at the time, okay? A lot of us knew, but certainly our family did not know. And the Cosby Show was a staple in our house. We loved it. And his early stand-up is amazing. It's incredible.
It was, and it was one of those things. So we were always, when I was born, we lived down in South Florida in Boca Raton, and then moved up to Rockford, Illinois later. And we have family on both sides, so no matter where we were living, we would drive to visit the other location. And so a lot of long car rides. I remember early on, my parents had figured out how to hook up like a mini TV in our minivan, just to watch movies, keep us occupied. And at some point, Cosby special himself was in the movie rotation, and it was humongously influential. And I loved every minute of it. I watched it a ton of times, even when we weren't on trips. His famous chocolate cake sketch, or his famous chocolate cake bit, is in there. And it was my first, oh, this is really fun. And I just loved it. And from there, I kind of wanted to find other comics. If my mom was always worried about, my parents were always worried about the content with stand-up. But
Yeah, my dad's still upset about the title of my book, which I don't care about, but yeah, he's still upset about the title. We'll get into that a little bit later.
It's an attention grabber. I think it was a great title.
As James Patterson said, as I watched his master class, he goes, "No book was ever sold that wasn't picked up." He goes, "So the title has to stop them, sell them. That title has to tell you everything you need to know about that book." And that book, Shitty Jobs, like, one, it's a comedy,
Mission accomplished.
and you know exactly what it's about. And a lot of people can relate to that. So that's why I picked the title.
I enjoyed it. remember thinking, oh, this is, it's an attention grabber and a great read, by the way. For
Thank
those of you listeners who have not read Shitty Jobs, get moving. What are
Thank
you
you.
waiting for?
Thank you.
What are you waiting for?
That does lead into my. Sorry, I have a couple of reads. This was podcast, as you know, because you're an avid listener, is sponsored by the book Shitty Jobs: The Guide to Surviving a Recession, which might be looming. So it might be timely. Hopefully not, but you can check it out on Amazon, Google, Barnes and Noble, wherever you get books. Again, Shitty Jobs: The Guide to Surviving the Recession. So I'm assuming you've had your fair share of shitty jobs in your life.
Absolutely.
Can you tell? You don't have to like name names or whatever, but can you tell the worst job experience you've had?
I have two that were particularly miserable.
Let's hear them.
And the first job while I was in college, I got a summer job. A friend of mine from college helped me get a job just at a shipping dock, part-time, second shift, and it was just loading and unloading trucks using forklifts. So I do know how to drive a forklift. It is one of my lesser known skills, but I am proficient. And it was just grueling work. Even on a forklift, you had to be like very careful picking up materials. A lot of the places we didn't know what we were shipping, but the two biggest customers were Nestle. So any Nestle product was coming out of this dock, and Fisher Price. So, or whatever, I think it's Fisher Price that makes like those kids play sets outside, like the tables and the little houses and little playground stuff. So I remember like those red cars that every kid has. I was moving those a lot. That was tough, just because it was a little nerve-wracking and the people were awful. The second worst job, I worked in the lumber yard at Menards for a short period of time, just loading wood into people's cars and their trucks.
Did you have gloves on?
Sure did. And no, they did not stop the splinters. I didn't have good gloves, so I got lots of splinters. That one I hated because it was tough work. I was dealing mostly with contractors who just are miserable people. They, just, are you sure those are the 2x4s I ordered? And it's like, well, we have one stock of 12-foot 2x4s. So if you order 12-foot 2x4s, it's here. And it don't look like 12 feet to me. I want you to measure that. Oh, okay. 12 feet, sir. It just the worst people. And I think I was the only person at the Menards job with a triple-digit IQ.
Interesting. Can I share something that you shared on Instagram? You already made this public, but I think it's really funny, and I relate to this pretty fiercely, I would say. I think this is it. Yeah. So you posted this on your Instagram, and dude, this spoke to me so hardcore. I have been at jobs where I'm like, the best. I'm utilizing all my talents on like Slack, like to make people laugh. I'm like, this should be my job. Like, why don't people understand? Like John Mulaney on a podcast one time, he goes, before I was he goes I was just before I was famous, he goes I would just walk around Chicago and Georgetown and think to myself, I'm so funny, but nobody knows. And it's so sad that nobody knows. But he goes, I'm so funny and nobody knows. And
Yes.
this is a great place because you don't want to be the funny guy at work. You kind of want to, especially if it's a job you don't like. You can do a good job at work, but what really sparks your interest is that Slack channel and
Mhm.
quips and jokes and making fun of people. That's the stuff that kept me going through some of my worst jobs was me riffing about something. Like in my book, when I worked at that market research company
Mhm.
for 2 years, we had one of our clients was Durex condoms, and by the way, I'm like a low level coordinator analyst. Like I have no say in anything, but there was we did a contest to see who could come up with the funniest names for these new Durex condom descriptions that they were shelling out. This is a chapter
That's
of
just a layup. There's too
yeah.
many good.
So I was like, okay. I was like, wow, like this is something I'm actually good at. Like, and I worked harder on that than I did at anything, or I used more of my like. I did a good job at what I was doing, but I used like 3% of my brain. I was using when I sat down to think of funny names for these descriptions of these condoms. It like it opened up opened up the rest of like the 97% of my brain, and
Like
it was
it's
so gratifying because I won the contest, and it was like my biggest achievement. People are like, oh, it wasn't even close.
so.
They're
What
like,
did you name the condoms?
yeah, because you anonymously you submit your names and then people vote on them, and I like destroyed everybody. They're like, these names are like unbelievable, and I'm like, yeah, that was me. And then one guy was like, I kind of had a feeling you would be good at this. I was like, this is like my biggest achievement at this company, like by far. Like, so I totally get that satisfaction when you're at a job that you're not feeling, but you just like in the Slack channel, you're just like killing it. You're like, God, like this is it. Like I am
Yeah.
technically being paid for this, but not, so that hit me so hard because
I,
you're finding joy in you're trying to find joy in like the the only places you can, and for me that was Slack.
no, it's the same for me. I mean, this is my first job with Slack. Um, so I was
That's like
introduced.
playing for a guy who does comedy. It's like playing with dynamite. You're like, oh boy, like I have access to this all day, and people are just chatting. Like this is gonna go off the rails.
It's yeah, it's an audience of people that are just as bored as you are.
Yep, yep.
So they're desperate for distractions, just like I am.
Right, and you're like,
Um,
great. I'm the person to provide that distraction. I can
y-
do that.
you got it. It's yeah, and sometimes it does get out of hand. My job, it's a very dry job. I
So
work.
sometimes you're like, this job is getting kind of in the way of my Slack like
Yep.
jokes, and if work could die down a little bit, so I could focus more on like entertaining people on Slack, that would be awesome. Because I would have thoughts like that too. I'm like, can this job part like chill? Like everyone's like really crazy about this job part. I really want to get back to this joke I'm trying to like think about on Slack.
Yeah, and I love when there's drama in the office that isn't necessarily um, like sensitive or high stakes, but just something weird is going on. Like it's a tech company, and we have tech issues all the time. And when like the server goes down, it's like, all right, like let's play, let's get after it. And I'm sure I have some people that are like, Jesus Christ, here comes George again. But it's fun for me, and I have
Hey,
my audience of 7 coworkers who are all over it. So
Don't apologize.
I,
Don't apologize. So I want to get into like, okay, so your initial inspiration for comedy was Bill Cosby. Mine actually, was Carlin, George Carlin. My mom was a huge fan of Carlin, and I just remember his routines were so funny, but I would learn a lot from them. Also, too, we come from a very religious family, and no one jokes about religion. And I always thought that would be very fertile ground for comedy. But our family is very religious, and they don't joke about it. Like no one can joke about it. I'll get to a story in a second.
I remember finding Carlin was like forbidden food almost. Like
like, but also too, like what I thought. Like I was like, yes, like that classic bit where like he has a special place where he'll send you with fire burning and torture where you'll scream and suffer and cry for the end of your life. But he loves you. He loves you, and he needs money. All powerful, all knowing, somehow just can't handle money. And he goes, and he was just explaining. He goes, war, famine, disease, all these terrible things in the world. He goes, if this is the best God can do, I am not impressed. This is not the resume of a supreme being. This looks like the resume of an office temp with a bad attitude. And that just killed me. So I was like, I was in, because there, especially in a religious family, there's so much restraint, especially being Catholic. You can't say or do anything. Like there's so much restriction. And that restriction certainly got me into comedy. I'll give you an example. So it was Zach's, I think, like 10th or 11th birthday. And you were probably, I don't know if you may have been too young for this. I might have been 12, 13. But Spencer's Gifts in the mall?
I'm familiar.
Okay. So it's a lot of gag gifts. So we're having a monthly birthday party. It's like in September, right after Zach's birthday. And I was in Spencer Gifts, and it was near his birthday, and I was like 11 or 12. I was with my mom, and I saw a Jesus Rocks poster, but Jesus was playing the electric guitar. And to me at this point, this was the funniest thing I had ever seen. And I was like, I'm going to buy this. I was like, I had barely any allowance money. I was like, Mom, it's like $9. Can I please get this for Zach for his birthday? We never gave each other gifts, but I was like, I go, Mom, it's too good. He's so religious. Like, it's so funny. And it's like lighthearted. He has like a guitar, like electric guitar. Yeah. And my mom, who, knows the Liloja family really well, she goes, honey, it is funny, but I don't think Dad's family is going to think it's funny. I go, Mom, you're wrong. I mean, look at Jesus Rocks. Like, this is the funniest thing. And he's religious. Like, I'm thinking it's going to kill. She goes, honey, they don't joke about religion. And I go, I persuaded her to get it. So I get it. It's in this tube. We're at family event. We roll like 60 deep. And I go, hey, everyone's giving out gifts. I go, actually, Zach, I got you a gift. And I'm like so excited for him to open it. And he opens it and he shows Jesus Rocks. No one says of a word. Like silence. Nana, I think, walked out of the room. Like it bombed so hard. And then I look at my mom. She didn't even say anything. I look at my mom and she goes, like I told you, but in my mind, but like normally a normal person would be like, oh man, I feel bad now. But at that moment, I was like angry at everybody. I'm like, what is wrong with you people? Like, this is hilarious. Like, that's when I was like, they're wrong. Like, this is funny. Like the fact that they can't laugh at this, that's on them.
Even as adults, I would see that and be like, it's still. But at 9, I would have been, or however old,
But it's
as a kid.
harmless. It's harmless. It's Jesus
Mhm.
playing a good guitar, and it says Jesus rocks. It's a simple pun.
Yeah.
And
No,
dude, they hated it.
I imagine.
They hated it, which
I
I think
imagine.
only for me doubled down. I'm like, that's it. I'm doing comedy. Like, if they don't like this, they I somehow knew I was like on the right track. I was like, okay, I think the fact that they don't think this is funny, they just don't understand.
I've felt that way in different parts of my life. Like,
People not understanding you.
mhm.
Isn't
I
that the
remember,
isn't that the worst when
yes.
you think something is funny and someone else doesn't get it or doesn't
Hmm.
think it's funny? Like, you try not to take that personally, but it's almost impossible.
I have a joke right now that I love, and I won't give it up, and it never works.
Can I hear it, please?
Uh, I've reworked it in light of recent events, um, but it is in regards to the big Wheel of Fortune shakeup. So it wasn't always, but I'll let.
Who's taking over for Pat Sajak again? I forgot.
I have no
Seacrest?
clue.
Oh, it's Ryan Seacrest, I think.
Is it Seacrest?
Yeah, yeah.
That works. So Vanna White
Yep.
is fighting with the studio for more money right now.
Well, yeah,
Um,
everyone is. Everyone's on strike.
you know, but I say good for her. She's got a very hard job. She works real hard. It's like a whole, you know, 2 months out of the year that they shoot. That's a long time, and it's really difficult when they put letters on the bottom row because she's got to bend just a little bit. And then on stage, I do like a little knee bend, and I don't think I'm delivering it right. I don't know what it is, or maybe it's just she's untouchable, kind of like Jesus.
No,
Like,
she's definitely not untouchable. You can make fun of Vanna White. I think it's like like this. You're not wrong. Like, her
mhm,
job, like, she wants more money for doing a job that literally anyone could do, but just
mhm.
because of like her tenure, whatever, and like that's. So I get where you're going. I think it's just like it has to hit harder a little bit. You're on the right track because like
Yeah,
it's a good observation, but
I don't know exactly what that hitter is, and that's what I'm having trouble with.
yeah, you need to hit it harder. There needs to be like a couple. Like, the setup is good, but it needs to come, and then the tag needs to come
The
quick.
punchline.
Yeah, the punchline needs to come quick, and it needs to come hard, and then like a lot afterwards. Because like
Yeah.
we all get it. Like,
Hmm.
she wants more money.
But it's just kind of, yeah. It's a good point.
Yeah.
I don't know. One
One
day, one
one
day it's gonna work.
one bit
I'm
of
I
advice. One bit of advice I got one time was all right. I got the advice, or I can't remember. I've listened to so many podcasts. And gotten so much advice from those podcasts. I can't remember if someone told me or I heard it on a podcast, but it's this. Um, they're like, someone said, like, you're funny, but these people have no time for your cleverness. Get to the point. Like,
mm,
get to the point. So, like, economy of words. Like, have a solid setup, and then you can tell a story, but have jokes intertwined with them. Like, Birbiglia is really great about that. He's a phenomenal storyteller, but like, there are a ton of jokes in
mm,
that story. Like, quick. Like, they come every 6 to 15 seconds. I mean, you know.
yes. And
So
with
if you're
Berbiglia,
gonna tell
it
a story, there's
feels,
got to be jokes embedded in the stories,
yeah.
for sure.
I want, I haven't done the correct weaving to
That's
make
okay.
that work.
That's all
Um,
right. You just continue to
so
work on it, man.
yeah,
What
that's
what comedians right now are you really into? Like, what other were there other comedians or movies or TV shows other than Cosby that inspired you to want to do comedy? Like, what made you to be like, that's it, I'm doing this? Like, I've made a decision. What was the tipping point?
The biggest tipping point was so I did a little bit of improv in college, and I knew I liked it. I was not sure if I was like, do I want to try more stand up? And I didn't really see, there wasn't really a whole lot of opportunity at the time I was thinking about this because I went to college in Iowa, um, and I had no knowledge. I would find out a lot later that um, it did exist, but I had no knowledge of kind of the comedy community out there. Um, so I stayed out there for graduate school, and two things happened. First, I was watching a ton of stand up. This was the moment where I blew through everybody on Netflix. I don't know why it happened, um, but I just decided it was time. We had a huge snowstorm, and my work, I was working at a school at the time. The school had to close because the buses wouldn't drive. So for like the second half of January into the first half of February, everything was closed. Schools closed down. We went into June later in the year. So I'm doing nothing, trapped in my apartment, living by myself in a snowstorm. So I needed some hobbies. So I went through Netflix and I found some comics that I love. I started with John Mulaney because I knew they were big fans of him. I went and watched who else? I started with Mulaney.
What did you watch? Did you watch
New in Town was the first thing. That was the first thing I watched.
Yeah.
I had known about a lot of comics. Like I knew about Jim Gaffigan was a big influence when I was growing up.
Yeah.
Again, growing up in a Catholic home, he was someone
he's like the pinnacle of comedy for our family, for sure.
Yes, very, very much so.
Like if you asked our family who's like really funny, they would all say Jim Gaffigan because he's has 5 kids and he's Catholic.
That was like when I was sneaking Comedy Central on our basement TV when mom and dad weren't home. He was the one that I was like, I think one day I was like, Dad, you got to see this. Like,
yeah,
it's hilarious, I knew about Dave Chappelle, but I had finally sat down and listened to some of his stand up. Bill Burr was a big discovery. Tom Segura was there.
Mostly stories. When I saw that one,
yes,
that one was so funny. I was trying to explain this to my dad because he doesn't like my book shitty jobs. He doesn't like the word shit in the title.
So he's gonna love Segura.
So Segura's great, and he does a bit that I saw. So is one of my favorite bits of Tom Segura is when I'll do it quick. He goes, "Is anyone tired of being alive? Like, I'm not suicidal or anything, but like, I feel like I've been around enough. I've seen a lot. Like let's wrap this shit up. Like, how many fucking days are there?" And then so that came out in 2016. Yes. I saw him do that joke like at a Comedy Central special, like at 14 or 13 when he was younger. And he does the same joke, but it's not as funny because he goes, "Is anyone tired of being alive? Like, I've been around, like, how many days are there, And it wasn't because of the F word. It wasn't because he said fuck. It was funny because he was authentic to himself. He said it with conviction. That's why it was funny, because it was authentic. It was his authentic self. That's what I try to explain to my dad. He doesn't know. He'll never understand. But, like, that's why I think I like Segura so much is because he's got such commitment for his bits and his jokes. Um, and on top of he's a phenomenal storyteller. Like
Yes.
I love Chappelle too. Chappelle's a phenomenal storyteller. Mulaney
Mhm.
too. Mulaney's one of my favorite comedians ever. Mulaney, tremendous storyteller. So the comics that I like, yes, I obviously like jokes, but I like authenticity
Mhm.
and I like good storytellers. And I
Yes.
also like comedians who are the same person on stage as they are off stage. And
Agreed.
who John Mulaney is on stage, he is off stage.
Yes.
Bill Burr on stage, he is off stage. Like they are the same person. I'll tell you someone who is not the same is Sebastian Maniscalco, which is my problem. One, the over top Italian. I know, and you like him. I have the
I
issue
do.
the issue with
I
him
have.
is like he's so different. Like that is an act that he does on stage. He is vastly different in real life. Like I saw him several times in LA. If you watch Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee with Jerry Seinfeld,
Mhm.
he's like a different person. It's such an act. And I don't want to I want an act, but I want that authenticity. I want to see that real person on stage.
I mean, I feel like he's still a curmudgeon in real life. Like he's still.
Not like that. There's a lot of theatrics that he does that I can't do. It's the same reason I can't watch The Sopranos. It's just too
Really
it's just too
too.
stereotypical Italian. I just can't do it. I've tried so many times. I can't get into it.
Really,
Yeah, I can't. Listen,
this
I've
is
tried
interesting.
5 times. I've tried 5 times. I can't do it.
I
And I respect the writing, acting. I know it's good. I see it and I know it's good. I can't watch it. I just
how
can't
how I'm sorry.
because
How
they treat Italians as stupid, as emotional and stupid. And I
that's not. First of all, we are. Second of all,
no, see that's my problem.
yes, we are.
Maybe you are, but
I'm absolutely
but
emotional and stupid.
yes,
And
yes, yes, of course. Like sometimes I'm stupid, but the portrayal of that some it's yes, some Italians are, but a lot of Italians aren't. I don't like the stereotype. I don't like the stereotype. I can't get
you
over it. That's why I can't watch it.
you've never heard the stories of like James Gandolfini would get anonymous phone calls from mafiosos saying like you're
And they'll be
doing a
like,
great job, but
yeah, but then
he
he said a Don would never wear
never
shorts.
wears shorts.
Don never wears shorts.
That's my
Yeah.
favorite. But he's getting the seal of approval from the people he's like from the type of person he's playing.
He's amazing. He's
I don't
phenomenal
know.
in it. I can't watch it. I
Have
can't.
Have you ever spent any time with my New York, like my dad's side of the family
Listen,
from New York?
there are Italians who are like that, okay? But there's a lot that aren't. But people assume that all Italians are like that because of that show. It's
Well,
so popular.
other people are stupid.
I agree, and that's my point. It's when you have a universally I've said this a million times. When you have a universally popular show like The Sopranos, it's liked by smart people and it's liked by dumb people. And or people it's or I should in a nicer way because I said this to Teresa and Teresa said don't call them dumb. So I'll say this: responsible people and irresponsible people. So people who understand this isn't all Italians. This is Italian. This is a specific Italian family from New Jersey. Versus someone who's irresponsible says, "Oh, that's how Italians are. That's how all of them are," and they're not. Let's move on.
Okay.
We can agree.
Agree.
We can agree to disagree.
Okay.
So I want to talk about I think you should leave because we talked about stand up. So Tom Segura, Mulaney, Nate Bargatze, some of our favorite stand up specials we really like. That Baby J's. I think Mulaney's best work. I think he'll probably win an Emmy for that.
Oh, yeah.
I think you should leave. I literally talked about this for an hour with Angelo on a previous podcast. When did you first discover that sketch show on Netflix? Because
Actually,
it's a show that you and I and Angelo, our other cousin, absolutely love, and we have a text thread, and it's solely I think you should leave memes and references.
it was that same time. So I was in graduate school, and I don't know when it came out. Um, but so like
It came out in like the spring of 19.
yeah, that sounds about right. Um, so after that snowy period, found stand up in my town. And one of the other comedians is like, Tim Robinson's dropping the show. And he was a huge Tim Robinson fan. And so I was like, well, I'll watch. I've been doing stand up for 2 months. You know, I'm a comic now. I need to watch what comics watch. But my friend Ryan said, you got to watch this. And I did all the way through and just lost it laughing. And then 2 weeks later, you texted me and said, you need to watch this show. And I was like, I already have. Like, it was that quick of, like, as soon as it hit, I was pretty early to it.
Yeah, yeah, it hit hard. I know Tim Robinson from improv in Chicago. I had seen him perform with my favorite improv group, Cook County Social Club, and
Mhm.
he would just absolutely wreck the stage. He was so funny. It was ridiculous.
Yes. I mean, again, he didn't really, like, I knew him from SNL, and I knew that he wasn't there long. And I, I, I don't know. Occasionally, I feel like SNL is hit or miss, and there's a lot of stuff you can't do on a show like SNL,
Right.
because this is more, um, like, I think you should leave is more absurd.
Right. It has to be in that vein of
Yeah,
sketch, like
yeah,
where you and Zach Cannon can go off and do these dumb bits that you want, and then even
mhm,
heighten them even more. Um, but yeah, that's not for a mass audience. You know what I
yeah,
mean? That's not for network television, because most people would not get that or would be offended by it. Um, that tells you the type of people that watch network television. Number one, but then
Spider.
you create this loyal following because he's doing what he thinks is funny, and what he's doing things that make each other laugh. That's literally
Yes.
what how they created the show. And when you do that, you create such unique content. You get fiercely loyal. You get a fiercely loyal audience, which is something that I think is way better than
Mhm.
something massive, because that show is unbelievable.
And, and
What's
the
your favorite?
audience is
What?
the audience is so loyal. You see it on social media.
Well, that's
It
the other thing
has
too. It's like when you create something good, like your audience is your marketing team. They'll push it everywhere. There's accounts. There's so many references. You know what I mean? Like
mhm,
there's merchandise. I mean, you're going to see it this weekend, tomorrow,
can't wait.
with my corn cop TV hat. Um, like if it's truly unique content that's is truly authentic, like people will relate to it. And he could never have done that on SNL. So,
No.
well, but what's your favorite sketch?
Picking just one is really difficult.
Give me your top three.
Top three. Um, I think the I have a list of 10, and it's in no particular order, and I can't pick from that 10.
Let's hear them because
Which
I gave you my 10. So go ahead.
my 10, no particular order. Um, Laser spine specialists.
That's on mine.
Um,
That's number 10.
the the magician sketch. I think that one does not get enough love with
That one
Cecily
isn't
Strong.
even on mine, but that one is so funny.
Oh my god, that is one. Cecily Strong carries it, and
Yeah.
she's just just goes after him.
But I love when he goes back to the magician.
Yes. I make 10 times as much as you.
I make 10 times. You ruined my fucking life.
You ruined my fucking life.
Ryan Young and I say that to each other, I don't know, once or twice a month. I'm not kidding.
Has Ryan been a guest on this podcast yet?
No, he hasn't. I asked him about it. He said he had to be careful with work. But I'm like, dude, we have an audience of 2 million people. So who's really, it's not that big.
Ryan, if you're listening, if you do the show, I will
Ryan,
join
if you're
in.
Ryan Young, if you're listening, and let's face it, you probably are, please come on the pod. We'd love to get your expertise, obviously, on the show. But as a counselor and a lawyer, we would love to get some insight into your theories of law. Probably not. Mostly we'll talk about the show.
If you're worried about being careful with what you say, I would be more than happy to just hang out with a list of taboo subjects and a taboo buzzer, and I'll just, anytime I feel like you guys get close, I'll stop it.
How funny would it be?
That's my promise to you, Ryan.
How funny would it be if Ryan Young, a very successful lawyer, well distinguished, MBA, and JD, and then the Relative Talk podcast would bring down his career? He'd be like, I've been disbarred. He'd be like, oh my God, what happened? What did you do? Did you falsify documents, or what happened? He's like, I was on my brother-in-law's podcast, which I thought 9 people are listening to, but I guess someone picked up.
Well, you said he always tells you that you ruined his fucking life, so here you go.
There you go. Yeah,
you really could ruin his life.
100%. I wouldn't though, because I love him. All right. So, what are some of your other sketches?
The Ghost Tour.
Oh my dude, that's number 5 on mine. That's another thing I say weekly to Alex. I go, do any of these fuckers that pop out of the fucking wall? Dude, I say that always.
Trying to be funny.
I don't want anyone to have the worst day at their job. But do any of these fuckers? All right, next one. That's number 5 on my list. It's amazing.
The Jamie Taco sketch.
Dude, that's not even on mine, and that one's so funny.
That is what I love about. I like the long bit when there is just a long commitment to a very simple premise, and they stretch it out as long as possible. And I just love how he's like, "Oh, you'd be clugging a few beers if you had my wife," and then just does this dramatic flashback of he's trying out for the play. He can't get the lines out because Jamie Taco says them too fast, and his wife is supporting him. And when it just ends, and he's just like, "I gotta go. I gotta go." Well, you never sleep over. It is just so ridiculous, because that would be such a throwaway thing anybody would say in any relationship. Just oh, if you had my wife, and that's a big one.
That's a great one.
The hot dog car crash.
Yeah.
I think it's just, that is an essential part of, I think a lot of people's lists should be different, because I think different stuff stands out to different people.
Yeah, that's number 9 on my list. And trust me, I spent a long time. I labored over this list.
I did too. I feel like that is one that shouldn't necessarily be number 1, but it should be on everyone's top 10.
It's number 9 on mine. It's great. Also, probably the one that's used most on social media. Probably.
Yes.
AOC used it in a tweet. I was like, oh my God.
She knows. She's a fan of the show.
Yeah.
The best part about that one, though, is the part where I lost it was when they cut to Zach Kanan in the suit.
Yeah.
It's hot dog colors. Like, it's just, that one is perfect.
When he's naming all the porn sites, that part kills me. Angela says he quotes like homegrown Simpsons stuff all the time. Red tube.
Oh my God. I'm just going to take as many suits as I can carry.
No one wants this car. I'll take
it.
All right, what else? What else you got?
I got the Has This Ever Happened to You sketch with Turbo Time.
That's not on mine, but that's a great one.
That's another one.
What else?
My lone Tim Heidecker sketch is Game Night.
That's not on mine, and that's one of my favorites. That's how. First of all, it's how many good sketches they have. That's not even on mine, and that one kills me.
I have so many. I looked at your list, and I was upset with some of the ones I missed.
God, that one's so funny. It's not even on my top 10, but it's so funny.
Yeah, that one is just.
Roy Donk?
Roy Donk? Paul Buffalo! No, I quote all the time, where be your nutcracker?
Where be your nutcracker? Yeah, that's a great, for sure.
It's up with the Christmas stuff. Well, that'll just take a few minutes.
Got any gazpacho soup?
Yeah, oh my God.
All right, what else?
Let's see, what else do I have on my list? I have fully loaded nachos.
Oh yeah, that one. That one is number 8 on mine. And anytime I'm out to dinner with Alex, I swear to God, I go, you can't just like. There's a rule. Like there's a rule that you can't take all the. Anytime we're sharing any appetizer, like mozzarella sticks, I go, you can't take the cheesy. Like there's a rule. You can't take all the marinara sauce. Like on, like you're not allowed. Like I'll do it for anything. I'll do it for anything.
I love the best part about that one is the waiter, who I have been told there's a slight resemblance.
Yeah.
Between the waiter and I. Not looking good right now. I did not trim my beard. I'm looking pretty grizzly at the moment, but
you look great, and you're repping the Heat at so.
Yes,
even though they lost, but
they still made it farther than anyone expected, including themselves probably.
Yeah.
And then I rounded out with 2 sketches with the same featuring actor, Detective Crashmore.
Oh my God, that's Crashmore's number 7 on mine, which is hilarious. And then Shirt Brothers?
And Shirt Brothers. I think the Shirt Brothers sketch, this was hard for me, but that is my number 1. Nothing in the 3 seasons of this show.
Are you kidding me? That's your number 1?
I don't know what it is, because season 3 was weird.
Season 3 had the least. I thought season 3 had the least amount of sketches that I thought were good. Season 1 and 2, there's like banger sketches and so many of those.
I agree with that, but I feel like a couple of their sketches were some of their best. And I just love the whole beginning to end, going to the you know why? I think because I'm a person who weird people choose me as the person in a group to talk to. Anywhere I go, you can talk to any group of friends, any family members, anyone. If I'm in a group and a weird person sees a group, they're talking to me, and without fail. And so I totally get like when Tim Robinson's character is just so weirded out. Because like, hey, Shirt Brother, yeah. He's like looking from the seats.
And
then it just, again, a very dumb thing that has blown out of proportion. That is this might be a hot take. My favorite sketch of all 3 seasons is the trip to
Wow,
Hawaii.
dude.
Yeah.
No way. That's not even close to mine. But
It
that's
was
interesting. That's
it was
interesting.
a hard decision, and I had to sit with it. There was the receipt sketch I wanted to put on the list.
That's not even on mine, but that's a good one.
TC Tuggers I wanted to put on the list.
That's
Coffin
number
Flop.
4. That's number 4 on mine.
Um, the Do you know how to drive sketch? That
See,
one.
Angelo loved that one too. That's not on mine.
It's
But that's
not
a
on
good one.
mine. Honk If You're Horny.
Yeah.
I wanted to put on my list, but couldn't. And then I like the Whoopee Cushion one too, but
Yeah.
couldn't put that on my
That's
list.
a good one. The Coffin Flop is number 2.
Okay.
Baby of the Year is my number 1. I think that sketch is so funny. It's
Remember-
so dumb and ridiculous, and it takes so many weird turns. And Sam
Yes.
Richardson's hilarious in it. And then this is becoming this sketch gets better and better with age. That Bob Odenkirk sketch, the diner, when he's like,
Yes.
that one kills me, dude. That one kills me because there's nothing I quote more to Alex than she's beautiful, but she's dying. Like, dude, I say that about everything. Like, there was like it could be anything, and that sketch kills me. It is such a simple premise.
Yes.
And then you have Odenkirk, who is so funny, but also a really gifted actor.
Mhm.
And like, what? I have a wife, right? Tell her. Tell the kid.
I think it's funnier because of the success he's had.
Yes.
Like, because he is, I mean, when season 2 came out, he was the biggest name in drama at the time with Better Call Saul.
Yeah.
And he took the time to be on this show. And that Baby of the Year, I have heard a lot of people say
that's my number 1. That's my number 1.
I love it too. That was maybe number 11. Like that almost made my list. It was between Baby of the Year and The Magician sketch, were my last 2.
Those are good ones. Shifting into sports, because we talked about so you lived in Florida for a while. What years did your family live in Florida?
So my parents, right after they got married, moved to Florida.
Boca, right?
Yep, Boca Raton. And I was born down there.
Okay. And when were you born?
1994.
And when did you move to Rockford?
2000s, the summer of 2003. So I was 8.
Okay.
So
your formative years of sports were there.
Here's the thing. My formative years in sports were just starting.
So you didn't quite grasp it?
I sat down and watched sports. I would watch a Dolphins game with my dad. I would watch. That was really Miami Dolphins football and Marquette basketball were the only sports that my dad stuck with as an adult. And so we are down in Florida, March of 2003, when Dwyane Wade goes on the run with Marquette to the Final Four. I do not know who Dwyane Wade is. I was a spacey kid, but I knew about Marquette University. But the whole concept of basketball was like, that was
that's
it.
That's a college where your parents met.
Yes, they met at Marquette and got married right after graduation. So they were, or maybe a year after graduation or something like that. But so those were really the only 2 sports. And, the Dolphins, boy, post Marino, there's not a ton of great things to say. I guess Ricky Williams and Zach Thomas and Jason Taylor.
But now now your fandom is NBA basketball. You are a Heat fan.
Yes.
NFL, you are a Dolphins fan.
Yes.
Baseball, do you even care? Marlins?
So that's a weird one.
You're not a big baseball fan.
No baseball as a kid. I would say baseball definitely is not as big in my life as basketball and football.
Right.
When I moved up to Rockford, I was starting at a new school. I didn't know anybody, and all of the boys had gone to a Cubs game that summer as a group, or most of them. Like my elementary school was a pretty tight knit group of boys who played all the sports, who had known each other forever when I got there, and I was feeling down about moving, and I remember being upset, oh, the boys went to a Cubs game and that's all they're talking about. And my dad, to his credit, let me play hooky one day, and we got tickets to go to a game in September against the Cardinals, a Cubs game. Bought me a Cubs T-shirt, and we went, and it was really fun. Sean Estes was pitching, and Sammy Sosa got thrown out after arguing balls and strikes in the bottom of the first. I'll never forget it.
That's cool.
Cubs beat the Cardinals 7-6. So I am a Cubs fan. But really just that experience is what pulled me in. And then being around a family of Cubs fans fueled it.
Gotcha.
But I would say football and basketball much, much more.
Yeah, of course. So I want to get a couple questions about Miami sports. Should Tua retire?
No.
Why?
Not.
I think he had 4 concussions last year and almost died one time.
Well, first of all,
why should he not retire?
It's his choice. We can talk all day about he should retire.
His choice, but why do you say he shouldn't retire? What's your
because he was cleared medically to play, because the doctors that have reviewed him have told him.
Do you really believe that crap?
If somebody's lying to me, I will never have the level of access to know. So I'm inclined to say I'm going to trust that, and if we find out later that my trust has been betrayed, I'm not Tua. Okay. He has to make that decision.
But you would like to see him continue being your quarterback. Because for the first 6 weeks, he was an MVP candidate.
I have been accused of being a Tua truther from the jump.
You and I like Tua more than all of our family. You and I are the biggest Tua fans we know. And I am a huge Tua fan, and I think he should retire.
Yes. And I don't, because there's a lot of meat left on the bone. I think if
but his head, if he takes another shot to the head, or if his head hits the ground, dude, it could be over.
Did we say that about Roethlisberger when he got all those concussions early on?
Well, that was a different time, and we know a lot more than we did then. So
okay, so you think Roethlisberger in this time period?
100%, 100%. Knowing what we know now, yeah, absolutely.
Then I think the concern is warranted. I don't think it's ridiculous to be concerned, but I think the Dolphins made the right call at the end of the season by putting him on the shelf. Not playing him in that playoff game where they only lost to Buffalo by 3 with Skylar Thompson. Shout out Buffalo. And I feel strongly that if he is healthy, if he stays healthy, which is an if, it is a huge if. If he stays healthy, that team has what it takes to be representing the AFC in February. I stand by that.
Okay.
Now, it's a big if towards Tua staying healthy, but that's one of the best rosters in the AFC. one of the best rosters in the league.
100%. Their skill players are phenomenal. Waddle, Hill. I mean, they're stacked. Their defense is really good. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Offensive line. I wish they had done more to improve the offensive line. That's a fear. That's a legitimate fear I have going in.
Gotcha. All right. Last question about Miami sports. Who is the most beloved Miami sports figure of all time? You have to choose one. Dan Marino or Dwyane Wade?
Mario Chalmers.
No, you have to choose one.
No, I won't. But we do love Mario. I have to say it depends. If we're talking about me, it's Dwyane Wade. I was too young for Marino. If you ask my dad,
if you ask the city of Miami, what do you think? I mean, okay, for example, our cousin Paul lives in Baltimore right now, and
yes.
he is amazed of how many Ray Lewis jerseys he sees everywhere. He goes, it's as if those two murders never happened. Like they didn't even acknowledge that ever happened. Like he is a god in Baltimore, and so you would say that he is like the guy in Baltimore, Ray Lewis. So in Miami, like, is it Dwyane Wade or is it Marino? I would probably agree with you, Dwyane Wade, just because he won a championship and Marino did not.
I think
his only championship was 05, right?
06.
06, excuse me. Yeah.
And then, he won 2 with the big 3.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
But the 06.
So he won 3 championships.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's definitely Dwyane Wade.
It is, but Marino was so great that somebody who doesn't care about basketball would say Marino. And it's hard for me to say it, but I think Dwyane Wade wrestled the King of Miami title away from Marino.
I think so too.
Over time, which is not an easy feat.
Well, the biggest thing with Wade is he won 2 championships with LeBron and Bosh, but what separates him is that 06 championship where he had Shaq, but he was the guy on that team. I think his history would be very different if he had won all 3 championships with LeBron and Bosh and didn't have that 06 championship sets him apart, I think.
That was one of the greatest performances I have ever seen.
He was the guy. Yeah, he was amazing.
Shaq was hurt for a good chunk, and really, even when he was in, he didn't play well. He was starting to get old.
He was just a distraction body, in there. Yeah.
Alonzo Mourning, of all people, had the better statistical finals.
Sure.
But it was the Wade show. He was from game 3 to the end of it, coming back from 02. Like, I had a pretty strict bedtime growing up. There was a point where my parents knew I was going to stay up and watch these games, and I watched every single game, beginning to end. And there have been few performances I've seen like that in basketball or any sport, really. Just an individual. It's happened. And there are some performances that are just as or more incredible, but that was his 3rd year in the league. It was insane.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Fantastic.
He's incredible. So definitely Dwyane Wade.
Yes.
So we are in a fantasy football league. I've been trying to quit for years, and my common line is fantasy football is a pyramid scheme, which it is.
I like to share with the group anytime I feel wronged.
I do not want to play, but my dad will not let me quit, and it's infuriating.
Why don't you want to play?
Because it turns me into like not a great person. Like,
really?
Yeah, like it really does. Like I I'm cursing out Austin Eckler the last week of the season because I lost. Like he just went off. Like he had to get like 30 points, and of course he did, and I lost. Like I already have a lot of stress in my life. I don't need any more. Like I really, because I can't, because I'm a competitive person, so I need to remove myself from it. And so I pleaded with my dad, and he goes, "You'd really be letting the family down." And I'm like, "This is ridiculous." I was like, "Can I be on the same team with Alex? We could combine teams." He goes, "No, you need to have your own team." I'm like, I am not a fan of fantasy football, and somehow I'm going to get roped in it every year. It's a family tradition. I'll leave you with this. Another family tradition is Rib Fest, which is tomorrow. We're all really excited about it. At literally everyone's going. I think there's going to be like 80 people there.
Not a whole lot of no-shows. I don't think
Nick's coming for this. It's gonna get wild. And I wanted to ask you, because I am not exactly sure on the requirements for the judging. So Ribfest, one of the 5 or 6 families. We really sound Italian here. One of the 5 families get together.
5 families get together.
Yeah, and makes their own ribs. Okay, and it's a blind taste test. So each family makes their own ribs. There's 6 families. Yeah.
Yes.
6 families. They make their own ribs, and then it's a blind, and then they're in trays, and it's a blind taste test. And everyone has a sheet, and you rank them by I think taste, originality. Is that it, or is there one other one?
When Aunt Janine and I first developed Ribfest,
so you created it. You're the creator.
It was mostly Aunt Janine. She brought me on as a number 2.
So this was your brainchild.
Yes.
Wow. So I didn't know I was talking to the creator. So you definitely know the categories.
Co-founder. It was taste, originality, and then
there was a third one. What was it?
There was a third one. We had the trophies were pigs that we wrote on in Sharpie. Taste, originality. Then maybe there was a sauce category, I want to say.
Uh-huh.
It was so long ago. I have since relinquished. I liquidated my shares in the
Gotcha.
in the company. I am merely a participant this year.
What's the key to winning?
This is going to be controversial, and it might hurt some feelings. I think it is to keep it simple and don't take risks. We have a lot of...
That sounds like advice given to very inexperienced chefs.
Which we all are.
Yeah.
But we have a tendency in this family, and I am as guilty of it as anyone else, to when some kind of, like, for cousin's dinner, we had dips. Sorry, I'm burping. Hope the mic didn't catch that.
It's fine. There's no edits on the. If I didn't edit the Frank episode, I'm definitely not editing this one.
Fantastic. Then sorry about the burps. Excuse me. But no, like we had cousin's dinner last year, and we made dips, and the crazier the dip, the less or the more of it was left at the end of the night. And I think the same goes for Ribfest. You always get a few entries. Somebody goes like Asian inspired.
Yeah, Uncle Carrie's was so simple. He won it last year, and it was the best tasting. He goes, I just smoked them on the grill, and it was Sweet Baby Ray's, and that was it. I was like, that's it? And it was so much better than every other one.
I think Aunt Jenny has like 2 or 3 titles.
Does she really?
And yes.
Do you have a log? Have you kept the history of it?
There used to be a log. It has since been
liquidated.
Yeah, that I gave that up. That was one of the assets that were dealt.
Gotcha.
In the acquisition, but
cool.
Um, and she rarely has moved away from just a classic rib recipe with a good rub, good sauce. Um, you know, as soon as the St. John's, we've done it before. We're like, oh, we're gonna do this funky recipe with like this weird sauce, or we're doing a dry rub this year. No sauce. You will lose. I get it. You can choose to be an artist, but don't expect to take home any victories, because the 5 people that will absolutely love what you did and appreciate the effort will not help in terms of voting. If you're just like, I want to make a crazy recipe because I want to be creative, that's great. And those ribs are delicious. They just don't have the wide appeal.
All right. So hopefully I can get this episode uploaded tonight to give everyone some advice before tomorrow at their final stages of the smoker. George St. John, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I can't thank you enough. Good luck in your comedy career. I know you're going to do great things, and I will see you tomorrow.
Thank you so much, John. I will see you tomorrow. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Yep. See you.